All right, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Unleash Your Jira Data with Structure Formulas on DC Server. And with that, let's get started. So I am Connor, a learning and onboarding specialist here at Tempo. I work on learning initiatives at Tempo, and my main focus today is to maximize the value you get out of this learning session. So any feedback or suggestions are welcome. We have a few presenters on the call today. So first we have our structure product expert, Aleksandr. So Alex will be leading the demo all about formulas today. We also have Structure DC product manager, Julia, who will talk about Structure DC roadmap news and Structure bundle, as well as answer your questions. And then we also have QA lead for Structure, Dimitri, who will be answering your questions throughout the webinar. So for our topics today, first, an introduction to Expr, so the structure formulas language. Then we're going to look at variables and functions, writing your own formulas, formula use cases, and then have a look at the structure bundle, the 2023 structure roadmap, and then of course, at the end, we'll have some time for Q&A. All right, so next up, we have Alex, who will talk us through structure formulas on data center and server. So over to you, Alex.
Thank you, Connor. Hello, everyone. Okay, so today's webinar about formulas on DC. There are slight difference between functionality on the cloud and on the DC. So today's purely DC centered presentation. If you stay on the cloud and want to see what's going on in the cloud, we recommend checking our previous webinar, what we had last week. So we already put the recording on the on our channel on YouTube, so you can check it there. So I'm going to start from the beginning. I'm going to briefly explain what is formula itself, what is Expr. So Expr is a language that is used to write formulas. It stands for expression, so it's language that we developed ourselves to be used as the formula language. It's kind of similar to the language that Microsoft Excel uses, but it's just slightly similar. It has much more options. It's not full-fledged developing language, so you don't have to be like very sophisticated in developing to understand the Expr. It's pretty straightforward. I'm trying to show you today as much as I can examples how it can be used and what use cases it can be utilized. But in general, Expr performs the calculation. It has a lot of built-in functions. You can write your own functions. You can use different variables and assign to that variables different things like Jira fields, other formulas, structure attributes. So we're going to go over it during today's presentation. Can we go to the next slide, please? So why formula is so powerful? Why do you need that? So formula allows to perform the calculation. The other way to do these type of things is to export the data from the structure, from the Jira into the Google Sheets, BI, Excel, and perform the calculations there. But that also means that as soon as you grab the data out of the Jira, it became out of date. And there is no way to synchronize automatically the data that you exported with the information in your Jira. And structure allows to perform the same calculations inside the Jira ecosystem. So all the data is constantly updated if the corresponding fields in Jira is changing. So you always see the recent information. There is no lags between someone updates some of the fields and calculation are updated in the structure formulas. It also allows to access historical data, so we can see when something is changed, what the value was at the particular time in the past on this particular field, and use it into our formulas, into our calculation, into our expressions. We can work with the hierarchies and the most power of the structure is working with the hierarchies. So we can utilize that. We can go up and down of the hierarchy, grabbing the data from the top levels and put it onto the lower levels and vice versa. We can combine many things in one metric. We can build health metric for, again, for our hierarchies, for our project, for our epics, for our subsection of works, and see what's going on and see the insights, see the bottlenecks. So that's all the formula provides. Can I go to the next slide, please? Okay, so I'm going to grab the screen and we're going to move to the practical things. All right, I hope everyone can see my screen. So I'm going to use very basic hierarchy to showcase the formulas. It's not that important at the moment, so I just want to show you and explain how the formula works. So to find the formula, by the way, formula can be used in many places in structure, but in most cases it is the formula column. So we need to add the column with the formula, and to do that, we click on plus button to add a new column and just can type a formula, and this will bring us the formula column. Briefly, what this window is. So we have a name, and by default it's called formula, and we recommend changing it immediately because creating multiple formula columns named formula, it can be a little bit confusing. So I'm gonna rename it. There are other things over here which I'm gonna step-by-step explain during the presentation. The main thing is the formula window where we are gonna type in our formulas. So let's start something basic, like I'm gonna type in story points, and the way it works, formula tries automatically maps our variable that we typed in with a Jira field. And formula is about variables, so we need somehow grab the data from somewhere. So we need these variables to represent this data. So this mechanism that automatically maps variables to Jira fields, it works for the most popular Jira fields like story points, assignees, due dates, and many others. The main thing is that it should be one word, so it can be like this. It cannot map in this case. But as soon as it recognizes the value, it would map it to the story point fields. If it doesn't, if I go like this, if I call story points, it would not recognize this value, so I would have to map the value by itself. So story points. So I access the story points. So this is the variable. This is the field story points from the Jira. So let's create some easy condition. So I'm going to utilize the if statement. Pretty simple. If something is true, give me the result. So I can say if story points, if it exists, then give me story points exist. So just the text. Very, very simple. And because these values exist, I got the result with that text. I can add the else condition. So if else always goes hand by hand. So if it exists, give me story point exists. If not, give me no story points. I put text into the quotation marks. It's how the text is recognized in the formula. So if there's no values in the story points, like over here, no story points is show. So they're very simple, but already shows what you can do with that. Let's try another simple example. I'm going to call due date. By the way, let's actually do it differently. I'm going to keep it like this. I'm going to call due date. And due date is the field. It would automatically maps to the due date field, same as with the story points. But in this case, due date is not a number. It's the date, but the dates are represented in Jira with milliseconds started from 1970. So this is the amount of milliseconds that passed from the date. And to be able to use that like in human readable way, I need to change the output format. So here there are options how the output format in the formula can be represented. So I can select the date, maybe change the style a little bit. So these are due dates. Same thing. I accessed the value from the Jira field due date. Now I can perform some operation on that. So I can, again, use the conditions. Say if due date less than today, and today is the function that returns the today's date. So comparing today's due date and today's date. Give me, again, text overdue. And if we are overdue, we should be shown the overdue. Okay, so let's now talk about the functions. So I mentioned that today is the function, and it returns the date. So if we go into the documentation, there's a lot of documentation about the formulas and its language, but the particular section dedicated to the different functions of the Explorer language. And there are a lot of different function types that you can use in formulas to perform a calculation. Date is one of those functions. It's the date and time function. But you can see there are a lot of other things, and I'm going to use some of that as the example. I would like to start from the type of the function called aggregate functions. And these functions allow to move the information between the hierarchy levels. So that's what I mentioned at the beginning, when you can grab the information from the higher level and put it on the lower level, and vice versa. So the simple example I'm going to use is sum function, which you're probably familiar with from the Excel. So it summarizes the value. And as the value that I'm going to summarize, I'm going to again use the story points. So I can type the story points and just summarize it. And the output is general. So it's sum of the story points through all the hierarchy. It's pretty much the same if I summarized it on the standard story point columns. The only reason the standard column also shows the parent value itself with among with the sum of the values from the children, and sum function just summarizes the value. It's pretty simple. Let's make it more complex. We have the things called modifiers, and modifiers, as it sounds, it change the output of the function. So in this case, I would like to summarize only on the parent level. So I can say sum of the children save, and it gets the sum of the values only on the children level. In this case, you can see that the value of the parent is ignored. Like if I move it back, you can see that two story points is not included in the sum of the children because it's the purely sum of the children on the higher level. And again, it's a very simple example, just toy example to show the possibility of how you can utilize in your use cases. We can make this statement a little bit more complex. So let's say I don't want to see all the story points from the lower levels, from the story levels, on epic level. I only want to see the story points that are in the particular status, or maybe they are completed. So here I can put a statement like if status not equal, let's say done, only then take the story points and summarize it. And that would adds me the sum of story points that only completed, ignoring everything else. Sorry, not completed, ignoring everything else. So now on the top level, I can see how many story points are completed or not completed for this particular epic, and make the assumption based on that. And it's only one of the possible sum of the aggregative function. If I go back to the documentation, I can see that there are lots of different functions that allows to perform a lot of different calculations, and there are a lot of aggregations modifiers that allows to change the original output of the function. Just another simple, quick example of the aggregative function is parent function, and parent allows to grab the parent value on the children level. So I can spell parent. I can say parent and probably summary. And this will bring the summary from the parent level to the children level. Again, quite kind of toy example. Not very practical, but we can bring on the story levels, for example, the versions of the parent of the epic, and compare the version of the story and version of the epic, or something else. So this is very powerful because you not only move between direct parent and children. But if I had the hierarchy much more complex, like in 3 or 4 levels, I can put information from the main parent from the first level to the 4th level and make the comparison between those two. Okay, let's move on. The next thing I want to talk about is another function. This type of function called arrays, and arrays is the multiple values that store together. And some of the Jira fields, some of the natural Jira fields are arrays. For example, versions are arrays. So versions stored in one field, or sprints they stored in one field. So if I just type version, it will maps automatically with the version, fixed version in the Jira. And you can see I have 2 values over here. So that means 2 values in one field. It's array of the values. And we have a dedicated function to work with the arrays. And I will explain why it's so important in a minute. So we have function that allows to slice and dice information in this array. For the simple example, I can go through array of the values and find the particular value from there. So let's see if I copy paste the build formula. So I just find the version with the particular name through that array. Again, simple example, but allows you to work with the much more complex set of data. So if you have array of the dozens of values, you can go through it and compare and find what you exactly need. And the importance of the array is not only that you can work with the arrays that Jira provides as the field. You can create your own arrays. You can create array of the values on top level. So I can, there's a function called array, and I can use it to create array of information derived from the lower levels. So I can put here, like, again, story points or other values, and this will be stored on the top level. And then I can access that and address that and utilize it on the lower levels. And I'll show you that in the examples in a minute. Just quickly switching to other topic. There is also a thing called item properties. So it's not really a function. Some of the fields in Jira, some of the values have additional properties. And again, we can type the versions or sprint. These fields have property that are not part of the field. They kind of internal property of the Jira. Like version has start date, it has end date. Sprint has start date and end date, completion date. It also has goals. And these properties can be accessed through the formulas. So if I, again, return to the versions, and I type in end date, see if I have any end dates. I don't have any end dates. Let's see if I have any start date. Okay, I don't have a start date. Okay, let's see what kind of other properties we have on the on this field. So again, I'm going to refer the information a lot. So if you go to the documentation, there is a item properties section. It should be over here, and it will show the list of accessible item properties. So I try to access version start date. So I use the start date. And the way it works, we just write the attribute like fixed version of version and add with the dot the property. So I try to access the start date. There are probably no start dates as in my versions. So I'm gonna try now. I think I'm gonna put in sprint and see if I have start date on sprint levels. Okay, I have a date over here. I change it to the datetime view, so I can access this property. And you can see in the documentation there are a lot of attributes you can take the properties from and use it in the formulas, and that would provide you additional capabilities in calculating the values from your data in structure. So I'm going to use these item properties in the next example, and that example is actually the example of the sprint. So I have another structure which is built with the sprints, and I have the formula column over here, and I'm gonna use the formula with the sprints and item properties. So because I have here the data with the sprints, it has the dates. So what I do in here, I'm access the property which is state, and it can be active, not active, and end date to the sprints. And I'm comparing the sprint end date, which is set inside the Jira, with today's date. And if it's in the past, meaning that sprint end date is in the past, it is not okay. Something is not right. So we have active sprint that end date is overdue for a long time. So just, again, simple example how you can operate with the properties and put it on your real data and get insights from that. Let's move back. The next thing is variables. So you've seen the variables. I'm using Jira fields as the variables. But variables is not necessarily a Jira field. It's any type of information we can utilize in the formulas. But in most of the cases, it is Jira fields because we operate Jira data. But it can also be something else, like we can use other formulas as the variables. So we can use the structure attributes. So structure has its own attributes like time and status, first transition dates. We can use that in our formulas as well. And I'm going to show it in an example. But I'm going to start with the variable that you can create yourself. So you can also create the variables, not only use the built-in fields. And to create a variable, we start with the word with. And then we give a name to a variable, like, for example, done story points. I'm going to again use the example of the story points. And then we define this variable. So again, this can be a field, but there's not much sense to use the create the variable and assign it to a field. It's usually some calculation, some initial calculation you want to perform at the beginning with the variable, and then use that variable in more complex calculation below. The example I want to present you here, so I'm not going to type it in and just copy paste the formula, is like this. So I'm creating a variable called done story points, which is sum of story points which are completed. And then I create another variable called all story points, which is sum of all story points on the parent level. And then I just divide one value by the other value. So it shows me the relation, the relative amount of completed story points over the all story points I have. Let's click save. And I probably change the output to the percentage. And it gives me the percentage of completed story points on the epic level. Again, for example, can be much more complex. We can use much more complex functions over here and build much more complex in the resulting formula. But it's just the way you look at the variable. So in this case, this is local variable that I created. The small disclaimer: the local variables are local because they work for this particular formula. So if I add another formula column, I would not be able to reference the local variables from the other formula column. So I cannot type in here done story points and use that in this particular formula, in this new formula, because the local variable only works within one formula column. But we can use the other formulas as the variables. So I can reference this formula in my new formula. So I can say something formula 1 and click save. and assign this variable to the to my formula over here. So let's say that's the wrong formula, that one. So you can see I added the previous formula as the variable to the current formula. And the way it works, it copies the whole formula into the additional window below. I can change it over here if I want, and I can use that wherever I want. And this new formula uses the copy of the original formula. So that means if I apply the changes to this particular formula, these changes are not going to be applied to the follow formula because it just uses the copy of the previous one. And that means if you want to apply the changes to the new one, you have to apply the changes over here, or just reassign this formula to the previous formula again. Okay, let's go next. And the next thing is, clear this up. The function, which is called, well, it's actually not really a function. It's the attribute called epic link. And this epic link, if I click on the variable, it is connected to the epic link field in the Jira, which is by default in the Jira connects epic with if it's standard children with stories, tasks, bugs, and epic link allows to get to the children of the epic and show this information on the epic level. So let's see how it works. By default, epic link returns the keys to the epic. Oh, sorry, it's vice versa. It shows the information from the epic on the story level, and then brings information from the epic to the story level. But actually, what I want to show you is the opposite thing, which is epic story. Epic, can type it. Stories. So it does the opposite. It grabs the story data and puts it on the epic level. And it creates an array. We talk about array when multiple values shown in one place. By default, it's just the keys, but we can apply the properties to get additional information. So let's say I want to see the story points of my stories below my epic. So I can add the properties story points. Oops, it's general. So it brings the story points on the top. And the cool thing is that I actually don't need the stories in this case. So I can just leave the epics. And because formula works directly through the epic link, it's still going to show me all the information about my stories on the epic level without having those in our hierarchies. And story points is just one of the example. I can probably want to see the maximum story point value, and there should be a dot. So it only shows the maximum, so I see what's the maximum estimation on my epic currently. I can use the other things like I can put in the function called UmaxBy, which is gets the maximum value from this array based on the additional on additional value. And in this case, I want to take the maximum story with the highest the story with the highest priority from all the stories beneath the epics. So it would be priority. So it shows me the story key with the maximum priority over all these stories that belongs to this particular epic. Again, it's kind of easy example. You can use the other things to grab the information from the stories and show it on the epic level without even adding those stories into your structure. So it can make more compact hierarchies, and especially if you have a lot of issues in your Jira. Okay, let's go Next example, and this one is kind of similar. So I'm going to use the attribute called issue links, and it performs the similar things. It goes through the issue link. So now it's not the field, it's the link connection, issue link connection in Jira, and shows me the links as the array. So all the links existing of these particular issues are going to be shown here as the array. But because links are bi-directional, or they go from one issue to another issue and back, we can have a lot of those over here. And to make sense of it, we need to operate with this array of values. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to focus now on the particular issue links that are block types or blocking issue link types, and that these blockers so they can go from this issue to other issues. So this issue can be blockers, and other issue can be blockers to these items. So I want to see only the blockers for this particular item. So that means the issue link would go from somewhere to these epics. So the formula gonna be looking like this. Let's look at it. So I'm filtering the all array of issue links by type, in this case it's blocks type, and by destination because I want the blockers coming to my particular items here. And then I have the source. So if I just delete the status, I have the issue keys that are blockers to these items. And again, utilizing the properties, I can look at the status of this particular item. Like this. Again, simple example, can be much more complex. We can utilize these issue links to grab a lot of information. We can build the metric based on this. We can build the health visualization. We can build the system that allows us to manage the dependencies. And I will show that in examples in the end, how these particular attributes can be used to group by different issue link types and organize the structure that provides you the issue management solutions. Okay, let me actually return the stories over here. So I'm gonna extend with the stories. And the next example I want to concentrate on is WorkLogs. And again, it's the array of the values, array of WorkLogs that I created in the Jira ticket. In my example, it's quite simplified, so I only have one user that created the log time on these issues. But I just want you to see the possibilities here, because it's also the array. All this function that allows to work with the arrays can be implemented here as well. So I can filter on these values. I can group by the information provided in this array. And just a simple example over here. So like this, and WorkLogs is twice. So it takes the array, which I don't have, and group it by the author, and then put the percentage of the time spent by different authors or different people who log time, and put it over here. Again, not really good example because I don't have the right data, but it can be used if you have issues that in the work by different people. You can utilize this worklog attribute and put different functions on top of that to grab the important information. So this function, these worklogs, work directly with the Jira arrays. We also work on the integration of the tempo, and we will be able to use the tempo worklogs as well. But normally they're synchronized because DC is one data. So changes applied to tempo worklogs will be added to the Jira database. So they're pretty much the same. Okay, let's move to the next example. And the next is, again, the function. And the function that I want to show you is a specific type of the function called historical functions. And historical functions allow to look at the information in the past, in the particular period in the past. So we can see, let's say, what status this issue was in the past, or who worked on this particular item in the past. One of the simplest examples I want to show is the historical value, and the historical value is exactly grabs the value from the particular point in time. In this case, I just manually put in the date in the past, and this is a due date. So it's the date format, and we can compare it with the current due dates. So the due dates that existed in this particular period of time in the past. And again, it can be used as the variable and then put it in the more complex formulas. Just to give you the example of how complex this thing could be, here's the example of the formula that grabs all the assignees that ever existed on this particular issue and how long time this particular assignment have been assigned to this item. So how long this particular user presumably worked on these issues. So this all utilizes the historical values, the array functions, the ability to filter and group in the array. So you can see how complex it can be and what kind of particular information can be derived from the standard Jira data you have over there. Okay, let's move to the other examples. The next example of functions, of capabilities of the formula is the wiki markup. The wiki markup, it's the way to change the visualization of the information you have. So it's the coloring of your text, changing the background, and actually for that one, I'm gonna use the built-in formulas. So this is the time to go over these options over here. So we have these saved formulas that we already built. We saved it, and you all have it. These called bundled formulas, and there are a list of those bundled formulas. And I'm gonna take this one, ask if I want to put it in, and it will download the built-in formula, and this formula utilizes the wiki markup. And in this case, what it does, it goes through the progress, it takes the progress. Let's actually see what kind of progress we're using. So if I click on the progress, it progress from my column, and it compares with the value. If there are different values, it provides different output with the different coloring. Again, a slightly simplified example, but this metric, the way the health is calculated can be really, really complex, can be based on multiple things, different formulas, different attributes and fields in Jira. And visualization allows you to see if there are problems, if there are bottlenecks, if slowing down on some of our projects. This is very, very helpful when you have a lot of columns and a lot of information to distinguish between really, really problematic items. Another thing I want to show is sample formulas in our documentation, and these are over here. And I'm gonna again go to the wiki markup, and you can see the whole explanation of the markup, and also see the example of the formulas. And you can actually copy these formulas and put it over here. So I'm not going to go through the for the whole syntax of the wiki markup. You can look at that in the documentation. But the thing I want you to understand that this wiki markup can be used with other complex function, like you can build the if statement and conditional function, and result of the this if statement can be visualized differently based on this wiki markup settings. So in this case, I'm using the different output for the different results of the. In this case, it's the days between due date and today. And again, with the wiki markup, I want to present another thing over here. So it's a quite simple example. It's just coloring the text. But the thing I want to show you over here is how the user function can be also created in in the export language. So we can not only use the function that built in that part of the language itself, we can create user function. And this function, I call it colorize, it takes into arguments the text and the color, and the function itself is over here, so we define it over here, and then we just put the values as the arguments. And again, it's the simple example. It just takes the summary and the color, but the formula itself can be much more complex. These values can be also taken from other calculations or from other formulas. And from our conditions. And this allows to create really, really complex thing to visualize the problem or the good things you have with your data. Okay, I already mentioned the bundle in formulas. So the other things over here is that you can save your formulas that you have written and share with the other people. It provides two possibilities. So I can save it to my columns, so it's like the local formula. It can be available to me only. So if I click on Save As, it asks me where I'm going to save it. If I choose save it as the global, this formula is going to be available to everyone who has access to our system. And that means the structure champions, Jira admins can create the formulas and share it with all the people in the company. And that also means that if something needs to be changed in the formula, that formula can be changed in the global settings and then downloaded again by everyone. So the updated formula will be used. The next thing is this little bug over here. So it's the debug mode. It's the mode that allows to, as it says, debug the formula we have, go step by step through it and see how it works and why doesn't work, for example, if something is not calculating correctly. I'm going to use some more complex example over here. So let me like this. And this example just calculates it just compares two values, two text values separated by dots. And just this example provides a lot of complexity, which is really good when you want to find if something is not working. And the way this debug mode operates, you select the row, it doesn't matter in this case, and you can go over each of the values and see what the output result, this temporarily in the middle result is, and see how it is applied further in the calculation. So let's say this res result variable, I have the output 1, and let it use over here. So if it's greater than 0, it returns A is bigger than B, which is shown over here. So the other lines are not utilized in this case because this condition is already fulfilled. So this step-by-step approach allows me to find a problem. If something is not working, something gives these strange results, or gives the error. So I can go step by step for this debug mode and see what's going on. This is available only on the DC or server version currently. It's not available on the cloud. We probably will implement that, but someday in the future. Okay, that's probably it about formula itself. Again, I tried to show as much examples as possible, covering as much topics as possible. And in the end, I just want you to present some of the use cases, how it is utilized. The formula, I already mentioned that it not only available in the columns, you can use also the formula in the generators to group, to filter, to sort by. And that provides a lot of capabilities to make your hierarchy much more complex and make your use cases much more complex. One of the examples is, I also mentioned that, is the way to manage your links. And the way it's done over here is that I have a bunch of dependent items which are connected with the different link issue links relationship in the Jira. And I'm use the formula and then use the group by formula option to, let's see how it works, to group by this particular formula result. And the output of this formula is the type of the issue link. So I can see individually which kind of issue type is blocking, what kind of issue type is part of these issues. So it allows me to see from the higher level what's going on with these over-connected items in one view. Another example, which is actually the wiki markup, is the risk matrix. So I just built the kind of matrix view from the formulas, and each of these column is formula column that use two values in two fields, risk probability and risk consequence, and depending on the values on these two fields, it put the item on a particular place and with the particular color. So the higher risk and the severer consequences, it would go on the top and to the right. And this is actually the real use case that one of our customers shared with us. Another example is utilizing the formulas for SAFe methodology. So SAFe has a lot of steps. One of the steps is pre-PI planning, when you want to decide which feature is going to go to the next PI planning stage. And to decide on that, we need some kind of metrics, and this metrics is WSJF, which is weighted shorted job first. It takes several values from the Jira, multiplies it, and gets the output metric that then can be used to select the highest one. And these values are based on the Jira fields. So I have a bunch of Jira fields over here, which is populated by different stakeholders. So changes to those values will change the formula output. Then I can sort by that formula and take the highest one to the next iteration by changing the steps, for example. And this formula actually one of the built-in formulas. So this particular one is slightly changed for my use case. But if we look at the bundled ones, we have these WSJF options over here. So I can select it, connect different variables from your Jira fields, and use it in your calculations. And the last example is sprint management. I already showed that example with not OK sprint end dates. And I also have here the scope creep formula. And this formula uses the history functions to check if the items, new items, had been added to this sprint after the sprint started, meaning that we scope creeping, we add in the items already when already sprint is started. And it highlights these values. So if I put like this, a new item into this sprint, it will be scope creep, and it will provide me the calculation of the scope creep items over here. All right, these are all examples. Again, I tried to show as much as possible. I tried to jump from topic to topic to show you the glimpse of the possibilities and functionality that formula provides. Again, there are a lot of things. We encourage you to go to the documentation to see the examples and try to figure out if it works for your particular case. As always, if you need any help, you can contact our support, and our support is really good for creating and adjusting the formula for the specific use cases. So if you struggle with it, don't hesitate to contact us. So that's all I want to cover about the formulas. So let's move to our next speaker and give the microphone to Julia, our product owner for the structure. So Julia, floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you guys, and thank you for the questions you already added to our chat. Please add more, so we are here and we can answer pretty quickly. And I wanted to highlight that it is not only structure available on our marketplace for data center. And recently, really this year, we released a newer kind of product. We name it Structure Bundle, and it is really a bundle. I saw the questions regarding the Gantt. And we have like a special bundle now where it's not just a structure, but structure and Gantt and structure.pages, which allows you to put your Confluence pages into the hierarchy in your Jira, and also colors, which allows you to highlight the tasks based on JQL, and also Testy, the small test management system. And it also are possible to use their test results in your formulas. So you can create some dashboards based on your test results, for example, your automation test results. And we also have the Deliver product, which allows you to predict your dates, really, the milestones, and everything in one bundle right now. So you need to download and install and license only once. Yeah, this is huge. And also I wanted to share some news, something that will be released really soon or already released. So first of all, we are working like the whole year. We worked on our integrations between our Tempo products a lot. And really soon, probably this week, we will release their Structure 9.1 version with the Tempo Planner integration. Also, integration with custom charts. It's already available on the marketplace. So the custom charts brings their power of their graphics into the structure. You can check the data in usual histogram view or pie chart viewer on your dashboard via custom charts product. Also, we are working on structure.gantt public API. It is not available so far, but will be really soon. So you will be able to create your baselines automatically or something like that. Also, we are working on more integration with other plugins on the marketplace. For example, their Insights, which is a part of Jira Service Management now. And also, we will improve our current features. For example, you probably used the export feature for structure. It is not possible to schedule the export right now, but will be really soon. And one more feature I didn't mention is kind of structure sandbox. So you will be able to create tasks which are not available in Jira itself, but in structure only. And then you will be ready, then you got all approvals, convert them into real Jira tasks. It will be available really soon in next quarter, probably around December. We also have a public roadmap. You can check what's there. It is not like all things that we are working on, but the major ones are definitely there. Thank you. Yeah, and if you have any questions about the structure roadmap, you also feel free to ask in our question and answer module. Yeah.
I'll take over there. Thank you so much, both of you, for an incredible demo and the explanation of all things happening with structure. So we do have a few minutes left, and although lots of questions are being answered in the Q&A feature, we do have some that we want to answer live. So first question for you, Alex, is there something like epic stories, but for sprints? So to have an array and pinpoint the min value and max for sprints.
Yeah, good question. So let me jump back to the structure. So sprints, if we group a sprint, would behave as the parent for the item below. So we can apply any aggregative function on top of that. So like function like max, sum, story points. So anything that would grab the data from the lower levels would be applicable here. The only thing is that you might try to put these functions specifically for this sprint role. So if I put item ID, I should be able to see the item IDs. So it's the sprint type. So you can, if you have some complex hierarchy, you can say if summary name sprint or sprint equals that name, put the formula on this particular role. But otherwise, like standard sum over story points should work absolutely the same as my example with the epics and story, like that.
Perfect. Thank you. General quick question. Will you share formula examples from this training?
Yes, we will add all these examples in our documentation. So it's not only formulas, but also the use cases I showed, like the sprint management, dependency management, risk matrix. This all going to be added in the docs into in different section of the docs.
Perfect. And maybe just one more quick question. So is it possible to see only the last sprint for each issue? So meaning the current sprint the issue is assigned to?
Yes. Again, I probably don't have the data that would show multiple sprints, but if I do, I would use it like this. So we have this last function, which takes the last value from the array of function if you have an issue in the particular, sorry, in the multiple sprints. This last function would show you the last sprint it is currently on. And you can utilize that in the forward calculation. Like you can compare if this last sprint is active sprint, is it last sprint, is close sprint, and we can do actually a lot with the sprints with this function working with the arrays.
Perfect. Thanks for the clarification there. So I do see that we are almost top of the hour now. So Alex, if I could ask you to go just back to the slide deck there. And so where to go next though? So there are some helpful links here for you to check out if interested, such as from the Help Center. There's an Atlassian community article and a link to join the structure community on Slack. We do also have an upcoming webinar called Accelerate Your 2024 Planning Season with Tempo, Best Practices for Your Roadmaps and Project Portfolio. So this webinar is going to focus a lot on Roadmonk, which is another Tempo product, but it will also include a sneak peek into how Structure is being integrated with other Tempo apps, such as by connecting Structure managed data to financial planning using cost tracker reports and dashboards. So using charts and graphs with Structure, which is very exciting. And we'll say goodbye to you all. So that does bring us to the end of the webinar. Thank you again for your attendance and participation. We hope to see you all again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.